Who's actually going to get the most out of this Ibanez RG Prestige in weathered black, and who should walk away before they spend a big chunk of cash? If you've been eyeing a high-octane guitar but are still on the fence about whether it fits your style, your budget, or the way you actually play day-to-day, this is the kind of deep dive you need. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through the real-world factors that turn a shiny spec sheet into an instrument that either lives in the gig bag or ends up as a pricey paperweight. First off, the RG line has built a reputation for being a shredder's playground. The Prestige series takes that legacy a step further with Japanese craftsmanship, a sleek ash body, and a neck that's been called the Super Wizard. That's a lot of hype, but what does it mean when you actually plug in and start jamming? If you're the kind of player who spends hours grinding scales, tapping arpeggios, or ripping solos in a metal band, the fast access cutaway and thin neck profile are going to feel like an extension of your fingers. The maple walnut construction of the 5-piece neck gives you the snap you crave for rapid picking, while still holding tuning stability even after a marathon set. On the flip side, if you're more of a rhythm guitarist who loves open chords, warm blues tones, or a laid-back folk vibe, the RG's aggressive contour might feel a bit cramped. The body's ash wood is known for delivering bright, resonant attack, which works great for cutting through a mix, but it can also emphasize the high-end frequencies to the point where a clean chord can feel a little thin compared to a mahogany-based instrument. In a practical sense, that means you might need to roll off a bit of treble on your amp or tweak your EQ to keep the tone from getting too tinny in a small room rehearsal space. Let's talk pickups. The HH Configuration 2 high-output humbuckers covers a massive tonal palette, from searing leads to chunky rhythm tones. In my own testing, the bridge pickup gave me a tight, aggressive crunch that held up nicely when I pushed a high-gain amp into saturation. The neck pickup was surprisingly versatile. With the right amp settings, you could coax out a creamy, slightly jazzy voice that still retains the RG's signature edge. The practical upside here is that you don't have to constantly swap guitars for different genres. One instrument can handle a metal set, a hard rock gig, and even a clean-tone indie track with a few deal-in adjustments. But there's a hidden trade-off with that high output, noise. When you crank the gain, especially with a lot of pedals in the chain, the humbuckers can pick up a faint hiss. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something you'll notice if you're a studio musician who expects pristine silence between takes. A good quality noise gate can tame it, but that adds another piece of gear to your rig. So, if you're buying this primarily for home recording and you're sensitive to background noise, keep that in mind. Stability is another claim that the Prestige line leans on heavily, and the Gibraltar Standard 3 bridge backs it up. In real use, the bridge feels solid under aggressive whammy bar dives, and the fine tuners make micro adjustments a breeze after a sweaty set. I've taken the guitar on the road for 3 weeks straight, and the tuning stayed within a half step of where I left it, even after a couple of high-energy shows. For a gigging musician, that reliability translates into less time tuning and more time playing. However, the bridge does add a little extra weight to the front of the instrument. When you're standing for hours, the balance can shift slightly towards the headstock, making the guitar feel neck-heavy. Players who favor a perfectly balanced feel, like those who do a lot of seated studio work, might need to adjust the strap height or add a small counterweight. It's not a huge issue, but it's a nuance that shows up once you've been playing for a while. Now, the finish. The weathered black look is more than a visual cue, it's a low-maintenance surface that hides minor scuffs from road trips better than a glossy finish. For a touring player who racks gear night after night, that's a practical benefit. Yet, the matte coating can be a bit slippery when your hands get sweaty, especially in a high-tempo set. A simple grip tape or a quick wipe with a damp cloth before a show solves it, but it's an extra step you might not anticipate. Price is where the rubber meets the road. The Prestige series typically sits in the $1,800 $2,000 range, which is a significant investment for an intermediate player. If you're just starting out and you're still figuring out whether you want to commit to the shred-centric vibe of the RG, you might get more flexibility by looking at the standard RG line or even a used model. The value in the prestige version comes